And we're live, guys. Welcome to this week's episode of Reset Live.
Reset. What's up? What's cracking? How you guys doing?
Hey, guys. Doing well, John. How are you?
Everybody's laughing. This is going to be an epic show today. We have Boysen as a guest today. And it's going to be one of those things where I think we make this like, you know, a general weekly, what I call rap session, rap session. You know, like you gotta come on again because, you know, I feel like dudes, we got a lot of shit to work out, you know. So I think it'll be good. So how's everybody doing, man? How was your weekend, Boysen, or your week been going?
My week's going well so far. My mic just dumped out. I hope you guys are still hearing me clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. My mic just jumped. I'm doing well. It's afternoon.
Cool. So what about you, PJ and Devin? What's going on in your world?
Well, been getting ready to go to a nice health biohacking conference up in Vermont tomorrow. Picking up the keynote speaker, Jack Cruz, from the airport, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, you're going to hang out with Jack Cruz?
Hell yeah.
Wow, that's pretty epic, man.
Yeah, it should be awesome. And actually, my mom's coming to this one, so
that'll be awesome.
Yeah, going to introduce them, which is really going to be fascinating.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, he and his stuff has helped us so much as far as like getting her health under control. So I really wanted them to meet sometime, and it's happening this weekend. Wow. Besides that, beautiful day out today, so got a decent amount of sun. I've been doing a lot of landscaping recently, so the house looks really awesome, which is nice. Or the outside of the house, the inside. Oh, actually, PJ painted some this week as well, so that's cool.
That's true. I did do some painting. Got a lot of it on the floor.
I was just about to say, I heard a story about that painting job.
About 2 gallons worth. So.
Ouch.
It was so funny. I could tell because like
cleaned up though. Just in case Jess and Gail are listening in already. Oh boy,
man, you still had paint all on your feet and ankles and legs when you dropped me off at the airport.
Well, I actually don't shower anymore, so it's a new thing. No, man, I did have some paint on my leg though. I'm glad you caught that. You know.
Hashtag rethink showers.
There you go.
But no, things are going good. As Devin said, we've been improving the place and loving the weather. And I just got back in the gym for the first time in a couple weeks yesterday. So that was a big personal win.
Oh, yeah.
Well, congrats, man, on that.
Thank you. How about you, Chris?
Man, I'm pretty good. I watched my son for the first time for a long period of time. So child without mommy, right? For, almost 10 hours yesterday. I didn't get anything done. He cried a lot. It was an enlightening moment of reflection pretty much the whole day. So I'm coming off that, and otherwise I feel really good. I picked up a new client. I got some interest from a bodybuilding group I'm a part of, which is great. And we got a great show today, so I'm really excited for that. I've been looking forward to this all week.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
what about you, John? You're not where you are.
No, I'm
normally.
John is not where he is.
You're not where you are.
I am not.
You're not where you normally are.
I'm in Kansas City, so shout out to all my peeps there. My mom is ill, so I'm going to be here taking care of her for a couple of weeks. So that's what's going on in my world. It's very interesting being at home. But I did get a chance to hang out with my friend Dwayne, and it's good to see family, and it was good to hang out with my mom. And actually, after I get through doing the show, I'm going to go and spend some time with her again. So it's actually good to be home, even though under the circumstances it's a little tough, but it's definitely good to be home. So I'm enjoying that part.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were there?
I closed a big client. I'm staying at the Argosy Casino, so they're actually going to be my client now. So I'm doing some marketing and some consulting for them. So this is super cool.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I'm really happy to be here to doing that too. I already showed the guys the bathroom. Like, the bathroom's super cool. I was like, hey, check this out.
You guys got to see my bathroom.
You got to see it. So yeah, that's what's going on. So, okay, you guys, this is a pretty interesting subject. I called Boysen just to give somebody a background. I said, man, we need to get you on the show. And I was like, I think it would be good next week after we got through having this awesome show with Brooke Hampton. I said, dude, I think it would be a good follow-up with you talking about the men stuff. And I think we talked for about an hour, just about a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't know. Chris, do you want to introduce Boysen first?
Yeah, I'd be honored to do that. So
awesome.
Boysen's the communications director for the Mankind Project USA. It's an organization it's changed my life, and I've been a part of that for a long time. MKP USA is part of a global brotherhood of nonprofits that conduct transformational initiation programs for men and supporting a network of men's groups serving over 10,000 men every week. He's the author of The New Macho, a 21st century credo for the mature masculine. His mission is to transform culture by co-creating space for connection. He is a dedicated husband and a dad and a good friend of mine. What's up, Boysen?
Thanks, Chris.
I like the intonations.
You like that?
Yeah.
So formal. So very formal.
Yeah. Well, you did give me the intro.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, we have to make you sound official. You are official, so we have to do that at least.
Double the action.
The end of the formal session right there. So.
Right, that's it.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today, guys?
Well,
who wants to call this one out?
Yeah. Who wants to
cue the 2.5 men?
Quote unquote label this?
So I'm just gonna throw this question out there.
Yes.
Are we all just pussies?
Whoa, diving right in.
I loathe that comparison.
I really
loathe
do.
that comparison.
I do too. Yeah.
It's one of those things, right? A lot of us, what's the worst thing? And I'm going to preface almost everything I say today with the fact that it didn't come from me. So the stuff, and I'll try and refer to people as I go along. If I'm doing some name dropping, I'll try and call people out as I go along. But masculinity is one of those things that has to be constantly reinforced. You constantly have to prove that you're a man. And one of the ways that we do that is by proving we're not women, proving we're in opposition to. So this whole pussy thing, you're a pussy thing. And when we were jamming about this the other day, I said, God, I wish,
right.
Man, the pussy, the vagina, right? Can take an inordinate amount of pain, gives birth to babies, is tucked away up in there. And what are we? We're walking around with these little flimsy sacks like hanging off the fronts of our bodies. And there's really no way. There's really no way. So there's this theory that I have that, part of the whole evolution of manhood was about men trying to learn to protect this tiny little fragile sack that we have hanging on the fronts of our bodies from everyone around us. So we invented an entire cultural framework and system for protecting our balls, because balls are really fragile.
Right. Like male ego sometimes.
Like the male ego, or like the whole construct of masculinity is kind of a fragile thing, kind of an easily broken thing. So we spend a whole lot of time, I judge that men spend a whole lot of time, or culturally, the culture spends a whole lot of time kind of questioning. We want you to constantly be calling into question your manhood, and we want you to be calling other men's manhood into question. And that gives rise to a whole lot of, I think really toxic stuff in our culture. If I'm constantly trying to front and trying to prove something to myself and everyone around me, it doesn't give me a whole lot of space to just be. and be who I am without all of that baggage, without all of that cultural baggage.
I do agree. And I think just to more contextualize the conversation, because Chris just kind of threw the bomb out there.
Yeah.
We're going to have to clean it up.
Yeah.
But the whole contextualization of this was really about, for us, is as we begin, and, Reset is really about rethinking everything and old ideas and outdated systems. And one of the things that we said that we have to even challenge ourselves on as men and doing this organization is, how do we rethink masculinity and the male identity, especially for the 21st century? And that is really being challenged now, and we're seeing that directly. And when we look at people like and that challenge, or that new definition, or whatever that is calling itself emerging, I think is kind of reaching its apex. And at this juncture of the game, I think it's really time for men to get down and do some real work, especially if we want to see massive, positive, and progressive social change. It also has to start with us questioning this whole ideal of masculinity and male identity, and how we relate not only to ourselves, to our families, to our community, and to the world, and how do we show up positively to make a huge impact. So that's what this is really all about. And when I called Boysen, it was a whole bunch of questions. We really got into some good stuff. This whole idea of, and the reason why we brought it up and started out with this, which, kind of gives us some attention, was, Ice-T wrote had this whole thing about the pussification of men or masculinity, and I was telling him how I thought that was so offensive. But more importantly, because of this new identity and male roles are beginning to change, I don't understand why it's something that's less in, when you can begin to start thinking in a more connected way. So I don't know, in terms of when it comes to this whole idea of masculinity and identity, where does it fall for millennials, and male millennials, because that's the other part that we want to be talking to. Not only is it identity, but how it's related. What did we learn from our parents and or other male figures, and what are we bringing to that to our own relationships? So you guys can kind of dive right in, but this is kind of a big conversation, but I think we can kind of harness some things and then talk about the kind of work that mankind is doing to really challenge some of these norms and these ideas. So that's this. So I wanted to give it a good setup so people didn't get lost.
That's great. And I want to hear, let's talk to millennials, and let's hear about the millennial question too. But first, I also want to just frame some buckets for us. Cool. So gender is a category, is something that we assume. Masculinity is something that we assume, but when we start to define it, femininity is something that we assume, but when we start to define it, and what I've had as a useful metaphor for me is, it's a bucket. Masculinity is a bucket, and inside that bucket, if you dump that bucket out, there's going to be a whole pile of categories and descriptions and words and things associated with masculinity, and the same goes for femininity. It's a bucket into which we've placed all of these characteristics. And I think that we are in dangerous territory if we assume that any of those things are fixed. Any of those characteristics that we put into that bucket are fixed. Masculinity has changed vastly over time. Masculinity, what we mean by manhood, what we mean by what it means to be masculine, has evolved and changed. And I think that in the last 100 years, masculinity has been more influenced by marketing, advertising, consumption, capitalism. It's the thing that we are sold over and over. So what we think of as manhood, what we think of as masculine right now, is something that we've been sold. And this is not a new idea by any means. There are lots of people who talk about this. But when we get into talking about, so go back to Ice-T, if we're talking about the pussification, wussification, let's talk about the wussification of men.
There you go.
We're talking about the wussification of men. So what characteristics does he feel are lacking So what characteristics does he feel have been taken out of the bucket or lost or are missing from the bucket? And there may be places in there where I would actually agree with him. So like, what's important?
Yeah.
What's important for, you know, a well-rounded, healthy, mature male person living in this time to kind of have a handle on? And if you look at some of the folks who talk about the wussification of men, you look at Joe Rogan, you look at Ice-T, you look at some of the comedians who talk about this, you know, my suspicion is some of the things that they're looking for, like purpose. They're looking for a sense of direction. They're looking for discipline. They're looking for commitment. They're looking for these things. And if I look at those characteristics, good things, good stuff. Not masculine, but really good stuff. I know some incredibly disciplined, powerful, committed women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the idea of like, okay, so if we're not wusses, then, you know, oh, that guy's got balls. So what does that mean? He's got bravery, he's got courage, he's got, you know, a sense of forward looking, he's got some level of aggression. So, you know, get between a single mom and her kids.
Right.
All that shit's going to show up like that, right? So not feminine characteristics. So now if we've examined the buckets and we dump out all the characteristics from feminine and masculine, then we're talking about, oh, what's a map? What's a framework that we've kind of imposed on our culture to make things work well? We like to categorize things. Human beings are categorizing machines. We like to make meaning out of things. So we've had these two buckets that we've thrown all these characteristics in. They've been good. Ha! Don't have to think about that anymore. Whew! If we know that the man's going to be this and we know that the woman's going to be that, then don't have to think about that one anymore. Well, 21st century. Fuck all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's changed.
It's changing and changed.
It's definitely changing. And I think some of the disruption or the uncomfortableness, or we're seeing this lash out of men is about trying to gain back what they think they've lost. Because I do think there is a sense of loss here based on these images that were portrayed, like you said, of what we've been sold. I don't know, Devin, PJ, what do you guys, where are you guys at on that?
Definitely agree. The sense of loss. I mean, if you look at kind of the traditional, you know, macho man, as Boysen will get into the new macho later, but the traditional macho man is a provider for his family, and that's his role as a man, and he needs to be in control of the situation, and he needs to show domination over other people and the situation. And I think there's a loss of control that some people are trying to fight against, and they don't know how at this point, especially, you know, the political climate comes to mind for this conversation. There's definitely a loss of control, and because of the way politics is done, a lot of it's a blame game. And, you know, this loss of control is because, you know, the women are rising and taking, you know, asserting themselves more. So that's a loss of control. There's immigrants that are coming in and taking the jobs, and they're getting all the support from the government and taking our money that we've provided through our tax dollars, and they're taking our jobs and they're taking our tax dollars. So that's a loss of control. And they're fighting back in this, like, no, fuck that, this is mine.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is how it's been for the past 100 or so years. And this is how the system works. And if you want in, then you have to pay your dues, and then you have to, you know, get in your place and get in line, and your place is probably behind me. So it's a really interesting issue, because you have to have an open dialogue with them and really get to the core of the issue. And I think a lot of progressives will shut down and be like, you're so beyond what I think is politically correct that I don't even want to have a conversation with you, or I'm just going to scream at you, and then nothing gets done. So I think we have to learn better ways. And I think through the conversations that we've had with Boysen and what mankind is doing, it gives you like a tool set and a way to actually have this way, and in a way that's not it's not like an attack on your manhood per se, which is what everyone's afraid of, that you're somehow less of a man because all these other people are showing up in a way that you thought of was your way to show up in life and only your way. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter, I guess.
PJ, what's millennial masculinity look like to you?
You know, I've been running that back and forth through my head all week, and it's been an interesting conversation. I guess I don't know if I have a direct answer, but I'm just thinking about masculinity and kind of if we look at some of the idolized or pursued behaviors and characteristics of the macho man traditionally. You know, you have the buff, the buff and shaped guy, and he does great with all the girls or all the women, or maybe he's a C-suite executive, so he makes a lot of money, and it's all about making money. So there's, going back to what you were saying, we have this drive to kind of categorize things, and there's really good qualities and attributes there. Like, it's great to be in shape. If you're running at the top of a company, you probably are doing something very productive, worth you making that money. But we tend to jade them through that lens and this idea of being macho. And right now I'm running this dialogue through my head of, if I idolize some of those, behaviors or accomplishments or characteristics, like I'm actually, and then pursue those just based on what I see of somebody else. Like, I'm actually doing something that's kind of like the sheep following the herd. So that's something that I'm kind of exploring right now as we talk about this. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think Boysen hit on it, and I think you're reiterating it is something that's been sold to us, and we haven't even hit. The other part of it is the what's also attached to that is the hypersexuality of that.
Yeah,
how we use that as power as men, towards or over women. I mean, we think about Donald Trump, what he talked about, and on the bus, and then relaying it as, oh, this is just locker room talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then then some of the guys in the locker room were like, no, we don't talk like that. But it was just kind of brushed off as, this is something that guys do, or this is who we are, or this is acceptable behavior, or it's what we call normalized. I would say normalized behavior for men, which I think is very, very, very interesting. And I know for me personally, and one of the things that I saw was Allie D had a really interesting comment on, she said a lot of the loss that Devin was talking about was directly related to women gaining more rights. So, I mean, if we're looking at women who are getting their degrees a lot quicker, they're going into business 4 times faster than men, their income is increasing. So this whole new emergence of women asserting their own womanhood and staking their claim in this area, I think is also very much a threat and challenge to women. I mean, to men as well. I mean, and I think that's a very interesting comment that she had, because I think that sense of loss it can be directly related or linked to women becoming more empowered. What do you think about that, Boysen?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of juicy stuff in there, and the first thing that I want to do is draw some distinctions around personal, interpersonal versus institutional, cultural. So when we get into talking about systemic patterns, so we've had this thing that's kind of been sold to us as masculinity. Now we have that distinction, that can be separate. That can operate at a personal, interpersonal level. But there's also been a systemization of all of that built into our institutions that's given men, historically, Western men, Western men, Eastern men, has given men advantages in the system. So we have systematized male dominance. Via
religion, via politics, government, all those.
Sports, via business, via all of these things. We've systematized, male supremacy. Into it's built in, and a lot of the things that are happening now, economically and globally, those systems are cracking apart, and a lot because of the rise in power, institutional power that women have been gaining over the last couple of centuries and are continuing to gain. So now men are being threatened by that. So Michael Kimmel has a term. Michael Kimmel, look him up. He's awesome. Aggrieved entitlement. So men have been granted, entitled with a lot of things in our systems for a very long time, and now some of those entitlements are being threatened. So now you have men who are feeling resentful, afraid, threatened by a rise in someone else's power, fighting against each other. So not only are we fighting within, I'm going to reinforce your message. You're not being man enough, Devin.
Is that because of my yellow shirt?
Yes, we're going to reinforce that. Your background is too colorful. Your background is too colorful. So
you're not doing enough. Yeah.
And that's not just men going to be doing that either, because it's system, right? Gender system. So I go to the grocery store and I hear a whole lot of single moms reinforcing a whole lot of really shitty messages on their 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-old sons, right? Getting that man up message, getting that shaming message into their kids very early. And these systems are starting to fall apart, and it's a really threatening place to be. It can be a really scary place to be. One of the things you and I talked about definitely was that we don't teach men how to grieve in our culture. We don't give and women also to a lesser extent, but especially men. We don't give men permission, and we don't give men skills, and we don't teach men how to grieve the loss of things. We teach them how to rage.
Yeah.
We teach them how to fight. We teach them how to repress. But we don't give them a whole lot of
that repression part, man, is so. I just think that's so key, because I just wanted to hit that, because to me that's what resonated with me. I was taught to repress. I was taught as a kid, and it's younger, you fall down, don't cry, boys don't cry. Toughen up, repress that pain, and it starts there.
Yeah, and then what happens when you let that out, right? Like internally, for me, when I resonate with what you're saying too, John. When I let that out, when I start to acknowledge that I'm crying and men don't cry, now I'm shamed. Now I don't feel good enough to live up to the expectation of manhood.
Yeah, what we've been sold. Because if you think about it, and I love, like PJ was talking about, like when you talk about the ultimate, we think about The Rock,
yes,
or we think about those, or we think about Tom Brady, or we think about, these ultra masculine, like LeBron James, we think about all these, and I know in the Black community, it's certain rappers, you're tough, you have to defend. And I was just sharing with Boysen in our conversation, I said in the Black community, you had to defend yourself. If you didn't defend yourself, then you were called a punk. And not only that, you would be harassed and bullied, so you develop these armors, or, these defenses that, and we don't have an opportunity. And then conversely, on the other end, I think that when you talk about the institutions, which I thought was really interesting, Boysen, is I think we're seeing an attack on women's rights based on these losses, like what people are feeling these losses are. That we're starting to see. And this is where you're getting into, the pro-life versus pro-choice, or whether women can get into abortion. I mean, just real crazy stuff, and I just want to, I thought it was so poignant that you really pointed out the difference between, the institutional versus the personal, because I do think those are really, really, really important. And so where do we go? Like I know you really brought out like the grieving and the loss and all these other things and the repression. What do we do? Like, because we've been taught this and we've been sold this. This is what you said, and it's so true. So we've been taught, we've been sold this. So how do we begin to deconstruct some of these, what I call, behaviors and values that we've set, and this programming? How do we rewrite this?
Yeah, nice. Programming. You just said it. Hardware, software, right? So there are distinctions also that we can draw around male anatomy and neurobiology and brain development and all of those things. And the best research on that stuff now is like, that's a small percentage of what we're actually dealing with as men and as women. Like there are bigger differences between me and another man sitting next to me than me and another woman sitting next to me in terms of neurobiology and physiology and stuff. And there are some realities there. There's some small realities, but the rest of it's programming. The rest of it's software. So the rest of it is what we've been taught, what we've been sold, what we've learned, what we continue to reinforce. And the Mankind Project blew my mind awake 13 years ago by offering me an opportunity through the training program, through the New Warrior training, and then through getting into men's groups to start to reset that programming. And to rewrite and question, to go back through, we can all, hey, look, a bunch of geeks in a room, to go back through that code line by line and say, is this the right piece of code here? Mm-hmm. Is this working the way I want it to work? Is this working in a way that's going to meet my highest expectation and meet what I want for my family, meet what I want for my community, meet what I want for my country, meet what I want for the planet? Is this programming working for us as men and women? And the opportunity through MKP is to get rid of a lot of the trappings. So I'm going to set down my career. I'm going to set down all of these things. I'm going to set down the car I drive. I'm going to go to a space with a bunch of men, go through a training process that's a very intense experiential training process that's going to ask me to look in the mirror in a way that I've probably never looked in the mirror at my own actions and choices, and kind of lay it out for me like, okay, I've been this way for a long time. It's been getting me this. I could choose to be a different way and possibly get something else. So there's a risk of going either direction. I'm going to end up, if I just keep going down the road I'm going to end up someplace that may feel safe. And what's it going to cost me? I can take a risk to change some of the stuff. I still might lose. It still might hurt. Now, what do I want? Mm-hmm. And what do I want my life to look like as a man? And that process of saying I'm fucked if I do, and I'm maybe fucked if I don't, but am I going to choose to risk? Which is also really cool and like, ooh, wow, exciting. Mm-hmm. Choose to take a risk, choose to go down a different path. And I learned, one of the things often said about the process that we do in the Mankind Project is the longest journey a man can take is 18 inches. From here to here. And to learn how to integrate my body, my heart, the other stream of information that I've been taught to repress through my whole life into the way I want to be in the world and how I want to show up as a man, and start choosing from there. And then, one of the concepts that I like to talk about is like, first, non-rejection. So first, I'm going to stop rejecting male emotion. I'm going to stop rejecting messages that I got about what it means to be a man, what it doesn't mean to be a man, and just consider. Let myself be open to other possibilities for myself. And then put me in a situation, into a hot container, into a situation where there's a lot of energy, a lot of different kinds of male energy, and show me what I can do. Let me bust through some obstacles to get a feeling for what I'm actually capable of, and let me see other men in that same process.
Yeah.
And it's life-changing. Like,
wow.
When do guys get the opportunity to see each other in that way? That's
I've, as somebody who's also been involved in MKP for, I don't know, almost 10 years, I think, Boysen. I would say that there's really no other place where I've experienced that kind of transformation, like what you're describing, in that kind of safe space and in a way that actually has practical application and has changed my entire perspective. So I think we're left with this question of, what do we do and how do we be? And I think that now is a good time to hear from some of the guys that went through that training that you're talking about. And then when we come back from that break, talking about that new macho and that new sense of manhood to embrace. So we'll be right back with you. Thanks for watching Reset Live and stay tuned.
All right.
You come away absolutely changed. And in many ways, the trust you've developed with your new friends is something that I haven't experienced before.
Well, I wrote you this to tell you it is done.
For me, the weekend was absolutely amazing. I woke up this morning feeling reborn, rejuvenated, an absolutely amazing feeling.
I went into the gym yesterday after the Mankind Project, and I just had one of the best workouts I had this year. So I was just alive and on fire, and I haven't felt like that in ages.
I learned things about what it takes to be a man, what masculinity is, that I'd never been shown or taught before.
It challenged me massively. Taken me out of my comfort zone where I've met a group of guys that are going to be mates for a long time to come.
I feel like I was able to let go a part of me, I guess, which was, the boy and come back the man. And I just feel a lot more powerful and whole and full now and able to sort of live my life with that integrity as a man and bring it all together.
I feel changed. I feel like I tapped into something that I didn't, I'd never tapped into before.
I know this is the beginning of a journey for me. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to change me overnight. But now I have the tools and the support to help me move on and to become the man that I want to be, that I know that I can be and that I will be.
It's taken me to a different place, and I really appreciate it.
Today at work, I just had an inner peace about me. I just had this calmness where usually I'm just inside, I'm just rushing at 100 miles per hour, getting nothing done. But I just had this inner peace about me today, which was just beautiful to have. Thank you.
Stove is hot.
Welcome back to the show, guys.
All right. This is a pretty lively discussion. We're getting a lot of really, really, really great comments and ideas and opinions. So this is something we're going to have to do again for sure. But there's a lot of things that came out. So what I did is ask Boysen some things that really, some of the comments that really stood out to you and talk a little bit about mankind. And I know I brought up 2 other questions, but any comments stand out to you?
Yeah, Jason, you guy, you. What's up, Gallagher? Epigenetics. Yeah, so let's talk trauma for a second, right? Let's talk generationally transferred pain. So now if we look at a gender construct, now if we look at the way we set up masculine, the way we set up feminine, the way we set up patriarchy, matriarchy, all of those things, and look at the generational impacts of that. So, my trauma as a man is not just my trauma, it's my dad's trauma, it's my granddad's trauma, it's my great-granddad's trauma. So I'm sitting with all of that, and then put next to me, bring my wife here, bring my partner here, and bring in the trauma experienced at the hands of men generations back.
Wow.
Or my trauma experienced at the hands of women, which is a different kind of trauma. This is I don't remember who said it. Men are afraid that women are going to laugh at them. Women are afraid that men are going to kill them. So there's distinction there, right?
Right.
There's a pretty big distinction there. So, and part of the work, epigenetics, right? I can start to repattern my entire existence, including my DNA, including what I hand off to my kids through the actions and beliefs that I take on now. So part of what the Mankind Project does is provide a remedial experience for all of that trauma that men take on, and then set up a place where men can continue practicing this new way of being, practicing this new way of patterning masculinity, that then has an impact on the other people in their world. So that then has an impact on their partners, that then has an impact on their kids, that then has an impact on their community. So yeah, I wanted to shout to that. Gandhi, Jess Kyleman, Gandhi worked toward the feminine power rather than power over. Yes, power with rather than power over. So now can we deconstruct how masculinity is a bucket and femininity is a bucket? So is collaborative, cooperative power something that we want in our society across gender? Yeah, cool. Let's put that in both buckets. Let me learn how to integrate that collaborative power that women have been historically better at than men. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And that's true for a lot of things.
Yeah. So like, how does the patriarchal system, because Ali talked about that it's, even though we have the best intentions, that we are in a part of an institutionalized system that's, you know, a part of patriarchy. So how do we work to overcome that? I mean, because that's the constant influencer. You know what I mean? That's the constant that keeps that in place.
Yeah, and so patriarchy, which is which is appropriately named and strangely named too, because it assumes that it is the patriarch. There's some association with masculine there, and patriarchy is a systemic system of reinforced oppression, right? So if we start to change the individuals within that system who hold the most privilege in that system, look at this guy, then I impact the institutions that I'm a part of. My impacting the institutions that I am a part of creates opportunity for other peoples who have been historically disempowered to step into more power within those institutions. And I think that changing the patriarchy is slow. Changing capitalism, which I think is the strongest reinforcer of patriarchy in this day and age.
Racism, homophobia, sexism, all that. Yes.
All the isms.
Just
name an ism.
Just reinforced over and over by this system of consume, purchase, transact. You know, the transaction as the highest form of being, rather than the human as the highest form of being in the culture.
Wow.
So those things, I think it's a slow process, and I think that this is it. You know, I think that the way we do that is to deconstruct at the personal and interpersonal level all of those things that reinforce unquestioned systems. So the systems are unquestioned. Gandhi said something that I love that I try and bring into every conversation. First, they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. So I think in terms of the way masculinity is emerging right now, this new masculinity, this new macho, in terms of the way a new femininity, a new paradigm for, you know, how gender interacts is changing and interacting. We're in the fight place right now. There's a lot of entrenched institutional power fighting back against this evolving thing that we are participating in, that fighting back against the reset, right?
Yeah.
Then they fight you, and then you win. And then the institution breaks down, and then Great Britain goes back to Great Britain and leaves India.
Right. So, I mean, you guys chime in, Devin, PJ, Chris, what comes up for you? Because this is some pretty juicy stuff.
Mind blown. Everything you're saying, I agree with, Boysen. It's spot on. It's really just spot on. You know, I think that any belief that we have that frames one of those buckets that you're talking about, whether it's how we need to show up as a man, how we need to do a transaction, how we need to connect with a person, it holds us back. And we're at this point where people are I mean, like look at what's going on with the presidency and the nation right now. There's fights breaking out all over the place. People want to resist the awareness that's coming, and it's not gonna stick around. The fighting isn't gonna stick around.
Yeah.
Well, okay, go ahead, Devin. Yes.
Oh, I was just thinking. It's interesting. It's like a dream, like a collective dream that we all decided to live at some point and are being woken up now. And it's like, no, I want to stay in that dream. And you have to wake up. Like that's the process, and it's like capitalism is the dream that people are like waking up from, and it's coming out in all these different ways. So I've kind of lost in thought around that right now.
There's a lot of thought threads going on.
It's that scene in The Matrix where they're sitting at the table and he takes a bite of the steak and he says, I don't care if this isn't a real steak.
Right.
It tastes delicious.
Exactly.
And that's the institution trying to reassert itself, right? Like, I don't care if it's a dream. Put me back in the dream, because the dream, I know what's right. Women are this way. Men are this way. Men are supposed to get this. Women are supposed to get this. Whew. It all feels so much easier instead of
it's so
so
simple.
much.
And it is easier, right?
Yeah.
Well, because you don't have to do the work. And I think that and those constructs are very easy to understand because they are boxes. And these are boxes that we didn't even create for ourselves. So someone created it for us. So at the end of the day, all we had to do was adopt it, which is much easier instead of redefining it for ourselves based on our own experiences. But here's it, man. Because I can get into a whole bunch of stuff. So like, where do women fall in this dialogue? Obviously, they are a part of the dialogue, and what I was saying to you is that I think that I was talking to someone that had like a small criticism of mankind, is saying that, they're in those training sessions, are they hearing from women or are they not? And because I think a part of the conversation maybe should be, I don't know, and I think you can kind of tackle this, Boysen, is are men aware of how their actions show up in relationships, or as how they relate to women, and do they get a chance to hear that and actually deal with that?
That's awesome. That's a great criticism. So first, no, not in the New Warrior Training Adventure, and intentionally, what the New Warrior Training Adventure creates is a space for guys with other guys to start to crack that shell. To crack that shell, to look at some of the core stuff and oftentimes some of the core wounds that we get in our culture as a result of being men. The ongoing work, so not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets. The ongoing work, the practice of integrating this stuff is when we start hearing, is when those voices come in. And I think that the Mankind Project right now is on an evolutionary track of its own. There are 3 programs that we have integrated in the last year that are co-ed, that are co-gender. And we're bringing more of those programs in, including a follow-up training that somebody else created, but a follow-up training that we're going to license, which is men and women in a container together doing the same sort of intense emotional work that we do in the New Warrior Training Adventure. And one of the things that we've been doing for a long time, but is getting even more ingrained into the kind of system of the Mankind Project, is the isms and issues work, is equitable community work, is multicultural work, getting embedded so that we are looking at the water we swim in and recognizing it and beginning to see the unquestioned impact. So that is something we talk about right from the get-go. Friday night, you enter into the New Warrior Training Adventure. One of the first things you're going to be confronted with is, how do your actions impact those around you? And that you are responsible for the impacts, the intended and unintended consequences of your actions. And are you congruent? Are you in integrity? with how you're living your life. And it is inevitable that what comes up for a lot of guys is, shit, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, the way I say I want to be with my wife and the way I actually show up and impact are very different. And so if I can practice non-rejection, if I can practice not rejecting when my partner comes to me and says, yo, you just had an impact and here's what it was, that shifts the dialogue. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Damn. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think it should shift the dialogue as well. You guys have any other?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, it touches so many points we've talked about, but I'm thinking about this idea or this truth, I guess, really that we're talking about, where we're in this, whether, you know, it's the capitalistic system or the patriarch system, the male favored system. And I'm thinking about, like, whether it's a minority group or it's women, some of the protesting that goes on, and I'm kind of viewing some of the, I don't want to say complaints, but some of the calls for change, and the emotion that goes with it, as a lack of the men we're in this power seat, right? You know, whether you want it or not, like, you've been given it. It's the social construct that we exist in, and I'm seeing how far it could go if men were more open and willing to push those same causes and those same interests from their seat of power, as opposed to people who aren't, you know, if you're not a man, if you're not white, if you're, you know, the list goes on and on. You have a more of a marginalized role, at least from a political perspective. And I can see the strife and some of the anguish that can develop just by watching men not participate to necessarily reinforce the system actively, but to just be indifferent or to turn a blind eye. And that's kind of where, that's the thread that I'm thinking about. And, you know, Boysen was just talking about integrity, and he was talking about congruency, which is a really big word for me personally. And always has been ever since college and having my own health issues and you know, your own, everybody has those moments where you got to face your own shit, like we were saying. And and you can either, you can bury it down and repress it, or you can open it up and take some risks, and it may be worse before it's better, but at least you're in truth with yourself. So this is, as everyone's saying in the comments, you guys are saying that this is a really powerful conversation right now.
Yeah, it is. And I love the fact that you talked about us men being in the power seat. I feel like that when it comes to white men. You know,
in particular,
yeah,
absolutely,
and I think one of the biggest complaints of a person who is being oppressed or who is being is, why is it always up to us to do the work to get those in power to do the right shit? And so I think that's why I like with Boysen, you know, when you answered, you know, like, you know, mankind is about, for you and this training is really about you looking at yourself first and you doing that work. You know, you want to chime in on that, because I think what you brought up, PJ, was awesome.
Yeah, PJ, that was totally on point. And where did you get taught as a man that giving ground was the most mature thing to do?
You know, right on. It's this past week in diving into this topic has been more about what doesn't represent masculinity to me than it's been about what does. It's really interesting.
Totally. So, and you know, the good news is, and I know that we're almost top of the hour already, which is awesome. We could just go on and on, right? The good news is, so even when you're talking about rappers, John, so now let's talk about Chance the Rapper. Let's talk about Pharrell. Let's talk about Common. let's talk. You know, let's talk about. Damn, I mean, there's some beautiful stuff emergent out there. So we can't paint masculinity with a broad brush. I think that there are examples all over the place of how this evolution is in full swing, is coming through, and there's so much possibility here. Like we used to talk about the man box, right? We're breaking out of the man box. So man box is gone, and now we have the amazing opportunity to restructure our society and to restructure how we understand gender as a construct, which I think is cool. Assumptions that I didn't throw out there, but I just want to, for 101 level here, men are emotional creatures. And if you think we're not, I can't help you. Like how we express and experience our emotions may be different, but in my experience, like the deeper we get in, no, it's not. It's just emotion. Learn the difference between repression and containment.
Wow.
Containment, healthy as hell. A woman in labor, containment, healthy. Men's rage, unhealthy.
Right.
Men learning how to effectively express anger. Damn, we need more of that in our culture.
Yeah, and you're right. And to me, the other key to that is, what is the impact of that? What is the payoff of you not holding in and repressing your anger? Maybe men live longer. Maybe they have healthier relationships. Maybe they'll. So I just want to
maybe, dude.
It would be. You're
documented.
Yes.
Documented.
Yes. I wanted you to go into that. That's the reason why I kind of.
The longest longitudinal study of men ever conducted through Harvard tracked men starting in the 1920s. It was like 1920s, 1930s, like over 75 years of tracking. And what they found is, so the men who live longest, have the best lives, have the best outcomes, are the guys who have the strongest relationships, the strongest, most open relationships, not just with their wives, but with anybody. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. ACE studies, right? If you're ranked, if you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on an ACE study, you are 80 times more likely to abuse drugs. You're 70 times, it's ridiculous stuff. So the proof's there that if we teach men and women, boys and girls, how to effectively navigate, how to deal with, teach emotional intelligence from an early age, we live longer, we're happier. The epidemic of male suicide that's happening, there's real issues that we need to be working, and men and women together working to fix.
I agree, man, and that's I think that's a good place to end. I mean, we could go on and on.
It's like the lead in to show 2.
Yeah, this is the lead in to show 2, which I think could go into dating and some of the other stuff that we want to talk about and how we show up in that as well. So I think we need to do these rap sessions more often, and with Boysen. I feel like this is very needed, because we're definitely needing to really rethink this and really massage and delve in a lot deeper into how our relationships, and these boxes that we put in, how they have impacted us negatively, and our part of the rethink. And one of the things I've tried to do and strive to do with even our group and our team is to really open ourselves up to understanding that we are family and we are brothers in this relationship, and people can be open and who they are. But it's always still a challenge for us. So first of all, I want to thank you for really coming on board. Even just in our conversation, I was just super appreciative and blown away. And just so everybody Boysen's been very supportive in just supporting us, and he just knows Chris, and as he knows Chris, he supported us, and so he's one of those individuals that I believe that really walks the walk and not just talk the talk. And I just wanted to let everybody know that he does that. And what's next for Mankind? Like, what's coming up next? What's going on? Give it a shout out. Give all the director of marketing kind of stuff that people need to know.
Very short. Very sweet. So we do the New Warrior training over 100 times a year in the United States. Our next training in New England is in October at mankindproject.org or mkp.org to learn more about the organization. And if you're a man who hears a whisper of a call that you could be more than you are right now where you're sitting, go do this.
Wow. You guys heard it. There you have it.
Awesome. So look out for show 2 of featuring Boysen Hodgson, guys. And if you got anything out of today's show, I'm not going to assume that you did, but if you did, I know I did. Head on over to patreon.com/resetlive. That's R3SET live. R3SET. So patreon.com/R3SET.
We dropped a quote of the day. So we got to get it in there sometime.
There you go. So again, R3 SET, patreon.com/R3SET. And support the show. We cannot continue to produce content like this without the support of our community and people like you. So thank you guys for watching. Boysen, you already... What?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to go on that thread. Really lively show today, so thanks to everybody that tuned in and shared their thoughts. I personally really enjoyed the comment thread was deep.
It was on fire, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
We're looking for that to continue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
And until next week, see you guys later.
Right.
As someone that would want to be a politician, so it's just a venue that I'm using to gain more knowledge about that system, but to help those that don't know about that system. In high school, I got involved with the Mayor's Menino Youth Council. I was a Dorchester representative, and that was the first time that I had to represent a community. In Boston Public Schools, definitely it's hard for us Cape Verdens to succeed out there because they want to shut down a lot of the programs that help us as students that English is our second language. The system is kind of hey, we just want to get the students to graduate. Forget if they're going to go to college or not, but we need our numbers to look that we're graduating a lot of students. One of the things that I woke up to when I came to UMass, we're not the face that they're talking about doing orientation. You know what I mean? They talk about it, but they're not showing the real stuff. So to me, it was just hey, we're actually here, and we're the reason that you have this diversity, but you're not giving me the resources that I need to show my Cape Verdean culture throughout campus. And people think, oh, there's no more racism. Yes, there is. People need to start educating themselves regardless if you were affected by it, regardless if you're black or not. That's a national and international problem. You don't have to be directly affected by it. You don't have to be black. You have to be citizens of the world. Second chance. Reset means second chance to me. That's my sentence. Second chance.